What if I told you that the collapse of modern economies was predicted more than 600 years ago, not by a banker, not by a politician, but by an Islamic philosopher sitting in a turbulent world of collapsing empires? What if inflation, rising taxes, government debt, currency debasement, and economic inequality were not modern failures at all, but ancient patterns we keep repeating? This is the mystery. How did a man living centuries before central banks and fiat money understand the dangers of money better than many leaders today? And why does his warning feel uncomfortably relevant right now? Welcome to Its Financial History 2. The world Ibn Khaldun was born into was unstable and violent. The 14th century Islamic world was no longer at its golden peak. The Abbasid Caliphate had weakened, cities were losing wealth, and political authority shifted constantly through coups and betrayals. Trade routes were disrupted. Plagues reduced populations. Governments struggled to fund wars and administration. To survive, rulers raised taxes and tampered with currency. Coins that once held real gold and silver were quietly diluted with cheaper metals. Prices rose, trust fell, and ordinary people paid the price. Into this chaos was born Abd al-Rahman ibn Khaldun in 1332. In Tunis, he was raised in a family of scholars and statesmen, educated in law, theology, mathematics, and philosophy. But unlike many scholars of his time, Ibn Khaldun did not live in isolation. He served rulers, advised courts, negotiated politics, and witnessed power from the inside. He watched dynasties rise with discipline and fall into corruption. Over and over again, he saw the same economic mistakes destroy societies. These experiences shaped his thinking. Ibn Khaldun began to suspect that history was not random. He believed civilizations followed patterns governed by cause and effect. Wealth, power, and decline were not accidents. They were outcomes of choices, especially economic ones. This idea was radical. Most historians before him simply recorded events. Ibn Khaldun asked why events happened. His answer became one of the most influential works ever written, the Muqaddimah. In this work, Ibn Khaldun explained that civilizations rise when social cohesion is strong, governance is just, and money is sound. In the early phase of a civilization, rulers live modestly, taxes are low, people are motivated to work, trade, and innovate. Money retains value because it is tied to real production and scarce resources like gold and silver. Wealth grows naturally because effort is rewarded. Crucially, Ibn Khaldun argued that money itself does not create wealth. Labor does. Production does. Trust does. Money is only a medium that reflects real economic activity. When money remains honest, society flourishes. When money is manipulated, decay begins. As prosperity grows, however, rulers change. Ibn Khaldun observed that success breeds complacency. Leaders who inherited wealth did not understand how it was created. Luxury replaced discipline. Palaces expanded. Armies grew. Bureaucracies multiplied. Government spending increased. The productivity did not. Eventually, rulers faced a dilemma: how to maintain luxury without creating real wealth. Instead of reducing spending, they raised taxes. Ibn Khaldun warned that high taxes destroy incentives. When people know most of their effort will be taken, they stop working as hard. Trade slows, investment declines. Ironically, tax revenue falls even as tax rates rise. This was one of Ibn Khaldun's most powerful insights. Excessive taxation weakens the state rather than strengthening it. When higher taxes were not enough, governments turned to the most dangerous tool of all: currency manipulation. Coins were debased, gold and silver content was reduced. More money entered circulation without real backing. Inflation followed. Prices rose while wages lagged behind. Trust in money collapsed. Ibn Khaldun described this moment as the breaking point of civilizations. Once people lose trust in money, they lose trust in the system itself. Merchants hoard real assets. Farmers reduce production. Black markets emerge. Citizens avoid official trade and taxation. The state becomes weaker, not stronger. At this stage, rulers rarely accept responsibility. Instead, they blame merchants, traders, and common people. They accuse them of greed or disloyalty. Governments introduce price controls, forced loans, and harsh punishments. Ibn Khaldun warned that these solutions only accelerate collapse. Injustice, he wrote, is the quickest path to ruin. Eventually, the state becomes unable to fund itself. Armies weaken. Infrastructure decays. Social cohesion disappears. The civilization collapses not necessarily through invasion, but through internal economic failure. New groups with stronger discipline and simpler lifestyles replace the old elite, and the cycle begins again. Now consider the modern world. Governments today face massive debts. Global debt exceeds hundreds of trillions of dollars. Currencies are no longer backed by gold or silver but by trust alone. Money is created digitally in enormous quantities. Inflation erodes purchasing power. Real wages struggle to keep up with rising prices. Asset prices soar while productivity stagnates. The gap between rich and poor widens. These patterns are not new. They are precisely what Ibn Khaldun warned about centuries ago. The tools are different, but the logic is the same. When money is separated from real production, economies become fragile. When governments rely on money creation instead of productivity, collapse becomes a matter of time. Ibn Khaldun did not oppose wealth or trade. He believed prosperity was natural when justice existed. His warning was about artificial wealth created by manipulation rather than effort. He believed sound money restrained rulers and protected society. Once restraint disappears, decline follows. His ideas quietly influenced later economic thinkers, often without acknowledgement. Concepts like incentives, taxation effects, labor-based value, and economic cycles appear centuries later in Western economic theory. Yet Ibn Khaldun's name is rarely mentioned in discussions of modern economics. Perhaps because his ideas demand humility from those in power. They require limits, they demand justice over luxury. And history shows that those in power rarely accept such limits willingly. Ibn Khaldun believed history moves in cycles not because humans are foolish, but because power forgets lessons once prosperity arrives. Each generation believes it is different. Each generation thinks it has mastered the system. And each generation eventually repeats the same mistakes. So here is the uncomfortable question his work leaves us with. Are we living in the early stage of renewal or the late stage of decline? If money is the warning signal of civilizations, what does our current system reveal about where we stand? There are 3 lessons Ibn Khaldun offers us. First, wealth is created by people, not by money. Second, excessive taxation and manipulated currency destroy productivity. Third, civilizations collapse when rulers choose luxury and control over justice and restraint. The past is not dead. It is repeating itself in real time. The only difference is whether we recognize the pattern before it completes the cycle. If this story changed the way you think about money, history, or power, support the channel. Subscribe for more deep stories where history explains the present. And share your thoughts below. Do you believe Ibn Khaldun's warning still applies today, or has the modern world finally escaped the cycle?